retention policies and such.
Now you're good.
All right, welcome to the November 29th, 2026 Mendon Select Board meeting. Tonight is actually a goal-setting meeting, but we do have some other business to take care of first. The meeting is being recorded. All 5 members of our board are here in person, so I'd ask you all please to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we get to the main event, so to speak, we have a request to approve the use of the upper meeting room here at Town Hall on August 28th for the, these are the Girl Scouts to host, or the MHUGS to host a recruitment event for Girl Scouts. It's a dance party, snacks and coloring. Somebody around that can tell us a little bit about it, or is it just a document that's in the past?
Just the document.
Yeah, the facility use agreement said here. So Girl Scouts reached out to Kat and said, can we use the space? And we didn't really have something that triggered and allowed communities, groups to use the space. So I put together a document from a bunch of other communities that have done this, worked with legal and worked with facilities, put this together. So these are the terms and conditions. Essentially, they could use it, and we're, they take on responsibility for returning it in the same condition. We've talked to facilities to, get like a trash bag and a room that we could use for stuff like this. So we'll spend a little bit of money and let the community use this, stuff like that. But in order, use of municipal space requires select board approval. So this is a recruitment event. They're going to do a little dance party, have some snacks, bring some folks in to meet current Girl Scouts.
Why does use of space require select board approval?
Because this building is under select board control and it's a non-municipal use. So you have to determine what that is.
Got it.
So, if some group with an objectionable end or whatever, or reputation wanted to use it, select board can say no.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like anti-select boards of America.
Jousting.
Made that.
Emails.
Now, it's a 1 hour event on Friday.
All right, well, I'd ask for a motion to approve the use of the upper meeting room at Town Hall by the Mendon, Oakdale, and Upton Girl Scouts on August 28th, 2026 to host a Girl Scout recruitment event.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 3, 2 surplus cruises from the Mendon fleet. So I think Chief Kersey's on remotely. So if you can tell us about that, Dave?
Yep, absolutely. So we have our typical cruiser replacements every year. I went last week to McGovern, that's our supplier, and was getting ready to order them. They're usually 6 months out. They have a new program. They just started this July 1. They have 100 cruisers pre-made. They're made pretty close to all of the specifications of most of the local police departments, and they guarantee to turn your cruiser around in 2.5 weeks. We have ours painted at the same time, so ours is going to take a little bit longer, maybe 3 weeks, which is still extremely fast for cruisers. So I had no expectation that we would get something that fast. Usually a couple weeks before the cruiser comes in, so it would have been 5 months from now. I would say, hey, let's surplus them. But because of how fast they're going to do this, and I don't even know if we have another meeting before then, but I want to get the 2 cruisers up there to get switched over. I'm trading in 2 cruisers, actually, reducing the fleet by 1 right now. So I want to get the 2 cruisers up there and be able to get them released and start the new cruisers so we can have them in 3 weeks.
That's with radios too?
Everything.
So the packet says there's a 2017 Ford Explorer with 116,968 miles and a second 2014 Explorer with 159,891 miles. Those are the 2 that you would want to declare as surplus?
Yes, one's the unmarked. So when I picked up my vehicle this spring, I gave the other electrical vehicle to the detective, and then the other vehicle is the sergeant's car that's being replaced.
And what's the typical, I mean, do they give this to us? Did we get $1 for it, or is there a significant amount of credit for this, or do you know?
Those vehicles are up there. They're probably going to be right around $2,000 to $3,000 for those trade-ins.
Okay, and there's no other
One
compelling
of them will be
interest-
lucky to pull it in the driveway, so that's why we're more than happy to take 2 or 3. Oh, hold on, Zoe. I got an Amazon delivery. Sorry, my dog. Zoe, come on. Sorry about that.
Right,
That's usually why I
and-
don't have the camera on.
We can't hear the bark.
And, you know, just last week, I was privileged to be able to do some teaching for the Semlink reconstruction team. And while I was there, the chief was bragging about the department's new electric truck. So can you just share this with the board about this new vehicle?
Yeah, so we were originally gonna get one like the fire chief. It was gonna be a F-150 electric. I actually had it ordered back in December, and then I got an email that it was canceled because they no longer make them. So I had to switch gears back then, and we switched to the GMCs. So we got a GMC Sierra EV, and the reason I was going towards the EVs and probably get another one this year is the $15,000 grant that we have from Green Communities. So Isabella's been great with helping me get the grants. We buy them straight out and we get 15,000 off. So basically the cruiser I have now was roughly around 81,000 equipped. And then you take the 15 out of it once with the grant, we're paying, right around 65, 66. Just to give you an idea what an outfitted marked gas Explorer goes for. The cruiser we're buying now is $71,000. So it's actually $5,000 to $6,000 cheaper than a fully marked cruiser, and you're getting a lot more out of it, less maintenance. The truck I went with for the extended mileage, I charged it up for the first time this week, 450 miles on a charge. So I'm not used to something like that. The Mustang's about 280, 290 on a good week. So I've only had to charge it once since I've had it. It's been great. But we're going to probably look at a second one and utilize the grant again this year before they go away, and look at one for the SRO/community policing vehicle. And at that time, when Jeremy comes back, we're going to talk about some options. We have to move some cars around and maybe make our fleet a little bit better and help out the senior center too.
Does that mean we have to then look into fleet charging with the size of that? Like at some point in time, we're gonna have to either add more charging units or a DC charger so you can.
And, to piggyback on that, we've got a couple of chargers up at Clough.
Yeah.
And a couple of chargers up at Misco. How long does it take to charge? Do you know how long it takes is this a level 2 charger?
Ours are level 2. So the one on the side of the station right now that I currently utilize is level 2. And already thought about the same thing, Jason. So I went to talk to Isabel about grants. There are grants available. I've already received 3 quotes, and I'm putting that in for a grant to hopefully pay for an upgrade behind the police station that will provide 2 charging stations for future cruisers. One for the one that Nick is currently driving. And that one right now, you'll probably see it over by Town Hall. In the meantime, we don't have to pay anything. I had Isabella set us up with cards for my vehicle and Nick's vehicle. So if we need to, we can use the town's chargers over there. So right now we're going to charge the Mustang over there until the grant gets processed. It could be several months. So I'd rather go with that avenue first, see if we can get about 20 or 30,000 paid for by a grant, and then install 2 chargers beyond the station.
That'd be good. Yeah, the Misco and the Clough chargers are like 60 cents a kilowatt hour. They're pretty expensive.
Well, you know what, when we fill up the cruisers up at a gas station, we get all the taxes. We don't pay the full rate. So I didn't know if it was the same way with
I don't know.
with National Grid or not. I don't.
It's that third party evolved company. So yeah.
So on mine, we're just paying the electrical bill. So I don't know how you'd break that down. I guess my charger does keep track how much we do. So I could reach out to National Grid and say, hey, this much of it's being used to charge a car. Is there any discount for it?
There's an app for that.
We have a separate meter for the charger in the parking lot here. We get a separate bill for that. It's a whole separate account. So that's all isolated. So we can check to see if that's a different per kilowatt hour charge for it.
And there's a National Grid app called National Grid Charge Smart that I think you can create one. If you don't, maybe it's only for residents, but I think you can create one, and they'll keep track of it. And they actually, since the electricity all comes from them, sometimes I think they can actually reduce or eliminate the fees depending on where it's from and what it's about. But it's just
they might have fleet services.
just a thought to bring up. But
Grid is also offering, so they're one of the vendors I'm working with. Grid is offering rebates and incentives and grants, and so is the state. So I'm actually going through both avenues, see which one's cheaper, and if I can even combine them so we can pay absolutely nothing for the chargers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, then, I guess if there's nothing else, I'm gonna ask for a motion to declare the vehicles as presented, the two I mentioned, surplus property, and authorize their disposal in accordance with Mass General Law and the town's procurement policies.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Chief.
thanks for squeezing this in today. I appreciate it. I know you guys have other stuff to do, but thank you. And in 2.5 weeks, you'll see a new cruiser.
Yeah, awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
I know I didn't at the top of the meeting. Normally, we give a moment for citizen statements and petitions. Joanne, do you have something you'd like to?
I'm just here to remind you all that Sunday is our big event. I'm assuming you all are coming.
Yep.
You know, just for the benefit of the recording and anybody who might, I don't see anybody else on there, but I do see, I want to acknowledge Sharon Luttrell, who is our reporter, is going to be reporting on this, so you may want to just flesh that out a little bit so everybody
Okay,
understands.
so Sunday is the actual mock signing of the Declaration of Independence. We have a fun full day and evening of events happening in the town. There's 2 trolley rides. The tavern, for the first time in I don't know how many years, will be open to the public with 3 rooms with a living history display. We've been 3 months in the tavern working on the tavern every night, every day, every weekend. I'm surprised I'm not divorced yet.
Did you have to turn anybody away?
For what, the trolley?
No, for the tavern.
The tavern, no, but our families are going, where are you going? We keep saying we're going to the tavern, so I think they think we're going for alcohol, but we're not. So Jane Lowell's been very gracious to allow us to do that, which we're very much appreciative of. The Mendon resolutions will be on display here. The weights and measures have finally made it out of storage up to the upper town hall where they will now be displayed. And hopefully in the future, some other historical artifacts will also make their way upstairs so that people can view it. Brian Murray is coming. He will be arriving at the tavern at 2:00. He will take a tour and everything. At 2:45, Main Street will be blocked off. The fife and drum corps will arrive. The town crier will arrive, and 56 delegates, everybody, because we have the senior van who can take people with mobility issues, will come down Main Street to the town hall.
So everything starts at 2:00.
2:00, Brian Murray will show up at the tavern, correct. Everything down here starts at like 2:45, but you guys, if you'd like to be at the tavern for 2:00, please arrive. We will have sugar cookies, Girl Scouts will be selling lemonade. It'll be quite the day, and
Looks like the weather's gonna be good.
weather's gonna be good. We'll do the signing and everything. Everybody will sign. I've got, the street will be blocked off halfway, so the select board will be on the front of the town hall facing the crowd, along with Brian Murray. I'll put 3 and 3, so the 6 of you will be on the front. In the middle on the stairs will be the table with the declaration that you will sign. I've got 38 chairs that will sit on the sidewalk, and the remaining 20-something will be in the road. But it'll be close to the road. I will have the mobility issue people and the people who are older sit on the sidewalk piece, so it's easier for them to get up and go. The declaration is this big, the box that it came in. It's almost an actual size to the declaration. It is on archival paper. It's in the old English style writing that they wrote back that day. It's got the wooden handles to roll it up. It's got a leather tie. The box is velvet lined.
Is it a fountain pen? How are you?
I have a real pen. I was going to do a fountain pen, and I was told not to. I have a real pen with a feather on it that you all will use to sign. You are going to sign your name. You're not going to sign like Thomas Jefferson. You're signing your name. Because when people go back in history, this will be part of Mendon's history now. When people go back in history, they will be able to say, oh, Joanne and I'm gonna sign my name, Joanne C. Gardner, my maiden name, Lamoth. We'll be able to say, oh, well, I wonder if I can find any lineage on that person, or how were they, or who were they related to anybody in town? So it will now become part of history. When that day is done, that will go downstairs to the town vault. And hopefully, once a year, along with the resolutions, it will come out of the dark and into the light, and we can display it and let people see it. That night, we have a band concert starting at 6:30 with the Blackstone Community Band. They will play from 6:30 to 7:30. They will be done at 7:30. At 7:30, I have a DJ who will then pick up and go on. We have an apple pie eating contest.
The Harvest Parade is at 6.
Harvest Parade is at 6, and they will march the field. The DJ will do an announcement for them. I told them to please use the DJ and everything, and they can do the announcement, and they will be there for that, and they'll do their prizes and everything before the concert starts, so that will work out well. Parking, before I get into any more details, is down here at the field. I have 2 buses that will shuttle people up to the field. I also have 8 handicap spots that will be marked at the field for people with handicaps, so that they can park up at the field. I've got 3 porta potties that will be up at the field. There'll be 1 porta potty down here at the tavern as well for people to be able to use when they're out and about in town.
Are we blocking this parking lot
This
off
parking lot will be blocked off for like, well, not.
during the signing, or
During the sign,
trying to figure out where my car's gonna go?
you're gonna.
Guess I'm gonna walk from club.
You're gonna walk through everybody else and truck on down. This parking lot will probably be blocked just for like the fire, not, like the fire department to be able to get in, the
Sure.
police department. I do have the, Fife and Drum Corps parking their vehicle back here, just so that they know, because they will be here at the end. I've got an apple pie eating contest, we're gonna do sack races, we're gonna do 3-legged races, I've got a pillory in jail. The pillory in jail, you will lock somebody up, you will have to pay, they will have to be paid to get out. That money will be donated between the Historical Society and the food pantry. That's where that money's going. I have food bins that, empty bins that will be set up at the field, and we're asking people to bring a non-perishable item to donate to the food pantry.
Cool.
At 9 o'clock, the fireworks will go off. So
Where they normally go off over there, or are they gonna do
they're
them?
gonna go off at the ball field where they're designated. I don't know where the ball field spot is, but they will be going off there. And like I said, the buses will start running at 5:30, and they will run until everybody is left and gone down to their cars.
Cool.
That's
So much fun.
And I did speak to Brian Murray yesterday, and he has, what the state has done is they made a replica of the Declaration of Independence for all the cities and towns. And it was made with a Revolutionary War era printing press on period parchment paper. He had it framed and bound. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it is, he's going to present it to us at the tavern at 2 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's great. Anything else?
No, unless you guys can think of anything or anything I've missed, I keep asking everybody, did we miss anything? Did we miss anything?
Is anyone able to ask a question?
Of course.
You're saying that you're putting out front for elderly, I guess, for lack of a better word, and those with mobility issues. Is that sidewalk safe to put those chairs on? Are they gonna be wobbly, causing them to possibly fall over?
I'm gonna test the one,
Okay.
I'll let you know.
All
I
right.
haven't, that was like on the farthest thing from, just trying to get it set up. But I'd rather have them up on the sidewalk than
Yep.
sitting down below to make it easier for them to be able to.
Sure.
Okay.
But I think we can kind of place them in between the bricks to be able to be okay.
Well, I want to express the town's gratitude to you and the entire committee, because I know there's a tremendous amount of work, and it's been at least a year since we first talked about this. So thank you for all your efforts. And it really is, I remember in 1976 when all the kiddos, all of us mustered from Founder's Park down here while they put up the flag, and somebody rode in, and Mr. Peranti actually rode up with the flag and took the flag out and raised it. And it was a great commemorative thing. And thank you for clearly matching that with all the efforts that you put together. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. It was a team effort. I wasn't the only one. There was a team here that did it, and there are a lot of people who also came forward in various other ways. I do have to know, if I have to ask permission, I have a 13-star flag that we'd like to raise on the old pole to put it up above the town hall, if that is okay on Sunday.
We have a flag policy.
Well, but it is,
I'm just
but
asking.
it is historically, yes, but it is a historically accurate flag, and we're putting it on the pole that we don't use anymore.
Correct. That's where
So
it's.
so I think that would be in the purview of the historical committee, which she is involved with, so.
I just wanted to let you all know, so that way that it will be going up on Sunday morning.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing us to do this.
thank you.
On to number 4, discussion of fiscal 27 select board goals.
All right. Starting to share my screen. There we go. So I'll go. I don't know why I created a full screen. So created a short slideshow here just to set the expectations and to guide us a little bit. I'm going to jump in and out between this and my memo just so we go back. I didn't recreate the goals multiple times. So we'll be talking about the same kind of hierarchical approach that we talked about last year. We'll be reviewing our outstanding goals. We'll go into define what a goal is for us, and then kind of do a roundtable, again, similar to last year, about priorities of the board. And I'll be up here taking notes as we go through it. So let me share what our.
Like your pixel kid.
So, like I said, approach. I'll try to, see what ideas are consistent that I can center for everybody. But fiscal 26 goals. We're grouped into a couple major themes. So technology improvements, formalized procurement of IT, we've done that. We've got a 3-year procurement, inventory of all hardware to get a multi-year replacement cycle. I've had discussions on that. Our vendor talks about their capability to do so, but we have yet to do that. Technology stack optimization, that's making sure we're not being duplicative in our procurements or making sure things talk to each other when they can. So that's kind of an ongoing kind of, which needs to be in our mind during each procurement. In terms of financial planning, 5-year budget forecast, staffing projections, and override implications. I think that was my main focus of the past 6 months. So it's not a 5-year forecast, more of a 3-year detailed forecast with then like a 5 to 7 year plan and general approach. And that will continue to be developed and refined. But I think this is something that after a few years of this approach, we'll have something really robust in this realm. Finalized plan forward on senior center debt exclusion. We've made strides. I presented with the highway superintendent and the fire chief to the capital planning committee the other day. About some building level approaches. We'll be bringing that here once I'm back from my leave. And Chief Kersey apologized for his dog. I did most of that presentation with my toddler on my lap the other day. So I get it, Chief. Formalized plan on managing yearly costs and replacement of excluded debt. So this is something we've talked about, rather than seeing big dips in debt service, excluded debt, let's keep it as level as possible. We'll see another big debt in the 2030 drop off of debt service in 2030, 2031. So that's where we're aiming for any next big project. Small amounts of debt within the levy may be possible depending on what the situation with Providence Street Culvert looks like or other small projects which we borrow for. So it's not off the table, but we haven't executed on that yet. 2 individual and union contracts aligned with comp class. We did that. We have yet to get one of the MOAs back signed, but that's imminent, right? Was it in this payroll?
You talking about the town?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That
that.
one is.
We got it, and was it in payroll this week?
It was in payroll this week because it made it in just a.
Okay, so everybody, all right, so
There we go.
we're done. increased communication from and with the select board. So developing department head involvement in developing organizational goals. I have that down here. It's in this memo. Communication to other boards and committees. We don't really have a formal strategy on ongoing concerns, so I think that deserves further discussion. Regular updates to and from boards. To the select board or at select board meetings, that didn't happen. Given a dedicated spot to say this month we're going to hear from this committee or whatever, we didn't do that. So rediscuss that if that's still a priority. Same with the all board and committee meetings. That's still a priority for the board. And the town real estate plan. Oh, I spelled town real estate plan. Worked on that a little bit with the town planner. It's kind of been a secondary goal for us in terms of other projects we got going on, but it's still something we are working on, whether it's been a fiscal 27 formalized goal or not. And then there were, I said, let's do 4 to 6 goals, and then they had subpoints and we had secondary goals. But some of our secondary goals were codifying the TA role, which we did. Holistic committee assessment, which is to say, let's look at everything, what overlaps, what's needed, what are we executing on? We didn't look at that at all. Create and utilize a townwide intranet. We did a little bit of that, but we've been utilizing the tools within our payroll system to do onboarding, which has been really helpful at kind of streamlining and modernizing that process. ADA self-evaluation transition plan, that's finished and circulated to you all, and at your next meeting, our consultants will come in and discuss that with you and with our town planner / ADA coordinator. So implementation should be, as I wrote here, should be an ongoing goal. So now that we have the self-evaluation transition plan, we're eligible to apply for the capital grants to actually execute on it. So imagine part of the discussion at the next meeting, but will be what can we pick away at with existing resources? What are some of the medium projects that we need to come for an appropriation or a group of appropriations? Say, this is 15 grand just to do ADA projects and let the ADA coordinator figure it out as we go. And then what do we need to go to get specific granting authority for? Town hall renovation completion. Yeah, I don't know necessarily what the completion looks like, but we've been making ongoing capital improvements. So if we want to make that another sub goal and say these are the 4 or 5 things, then.
If I can just interject one thing into that. Once we had finished the other, the most major renovation that included this, we had a couple of different people come with ADA related concerns with this addition that was added in the back on top of the well 20 years ago, and this steep set of stairs that goes down to that door that goes in the back.
Okay.
And the suggestion was that that needs to be reworked and reconstructed. And that was something that predated you arriving here.
Mm-hmm.
But while we're talking about that issue, that piece should be a priority. So whatever your plans of renovation are, I know we had an ADA coordinator, a lot of things were grandfathered.
So the town planner, Dylan Lindholm, is our ADA coordinator.
Now, that's great, so.
Yep, and gets $15,000 worth of the town planner's annual salary is supported by CPA funds for the ADA coordination. No, sorry, no, let me take that back. That's affordable housing coordinator, sorry. Dylan is also that. But on ADA, so actually the ADA accessible entrance, the accessible entrance to town hall is actually by the clerk's office.
Yes, well, regardless of that, the issue was that the grade of those stairs, the steepness, and I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but I'm just thinking it was while we're talking about the whole city. Yeah, it should be studied and addressed if need be.
You didn't want the ramp?
No, I'm talking about
Stairs.
when you come to the end over here and you want to go out that back door,
Oh, yes.
that steep set of stairs with the couple of people who are knowledgeable on the subject indicated that, and again, it's not something recent. It's been there for a while, but.
They're just temporary.
Exactly.
All right, got it. Comprehensive internal calendar. We have signed contracts working on the rollout. I sent notes back to our vendor. Funny, even before the general comment, the notes I sent back were, I don't like all these AI generated images for like other people's events that are on here. Like, let's come up with something, more either stock photo or whatever. So they're working on copyright issues there. So working on that rollout now. I told them we kind of be slow for the next couple of weeks. Increasing purchasing oversight, that's something that I want to be a goal of mine. We talked about me being able to focus more on financial management sorts of things once we had an ATA onboarded. So improvements in grants management and purchasing oversight are goals of mine. Regular review of study and goal implementation. We reviewed goals. We haven't really reviewed master plan in the last year, which is one of the most below. And then improved succession planning. So like I say here, certainly moving in the right direction, but it's one of those things that we just always have to be cognizant of, and we can continue to make improvements.
Yeah.
And that's not only just adding staff, that's adding in systems, adding in documentation, adding in training, having backups for different systems. I'm not going to read through all of these here, but this is verbatim. I sent out a survey to folks, and these are the verbatim responses I've gotten. So I asked department heads to identify their own goals, and that's not in here, but identify what they wanted the select board to hear about what they think townwide goals should be. So housing stock, Mendon's Town Hall in the 21st century with online forms, interdepartmental.
Is this a new survey, or is this the one that you had sent out?
No,
like
I sent this out
6 to 8 months
No, I
ago?
sent this out like 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Training for board members about open meeting law, continued collaboration between departments, invest in year-round programming, specifically through the Parks Department. The select board's been very supportive of our department and focuses, I suggest, to maintain that. So that's, it's nice. Communications lacking within some departments. Select board's improved, but we can have more communication between departments. Community outreach. There's been little review of the master plan. Continued Veterans Office work with the COA and continue to work on improving communications. So you see a lot of it there is communication based, which I think was one of the big goals of the board this year, in fiscal 26. So I think, as amorphous as it is, improving those communications and then what that means to you and what that means to department heads. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is just some of the stuff I wanted to do on communications. The newsletter and the town warrant report weren't, the communication goals, but it's been important to me to be able to, give voice to this office and this board and this organization. And then the second thing is about financial management. I said there's a history of culture. There's a history of a culture of department level budget management rather than any central controller management. This has resulted in a few procurement snafus. Implementing a more rigorous purchase order approval system would be onerous but helpful in preventing future headaches. I don't know how much buy-in there is from department heads, so this is going to be both a communication and financial management goal of mine. But it has been very balkanized about how we procure around here. So it would be it would not be an overnight thing to kind of shift that. And then performance reviews, we talked about that a little bit, and then just some things in here that we've talked about before: built out budget document, approval of financial policies. Review my understanding of the town's obligation to provide cemetery space and an actionable plan resulting from that. And that's kind of, you've all had this, and you can go back and forth. And your thoughts are as more important than mine, but I wanted to share where my head was at. Like, even if these don't make it to your goals, like I'm going to be working on a bunch of these throughout the year. Cool. Right. So that's our review.
Right. I think probably, unless you have another thought, is I'm going to start with a couple of what I think should be a major focus, and I was going to go around and let all of us just chime in. And just one thing I think right up front is I'm happy to hear that there's some pleasurable, some pleased comments about communication with the board. But I think a lot of that is going to be due to, the job you're doing, Jeremy, as the day-to-day person who represents the board to both the town and the employees. And I would just ask you, I would encourage you to keep up the good work, but also encourage all of the department heads or anybody to come to you first to set it up to talk with us in whatever way you think it's appropriate. But I think it's important for everybody to understand that you're our conduit for all of that, because you're here every day. And,
Yeah, okay.
And now you have an assistant who's already been assisting you. But that's terrific, that, you know, there's just that much more additional bandwidth, right? So if there's two issues that I just want to bring up. I think the first one is, frankly, is master plan implementation. I think about that because, you know, we all remember Bill Ambrosino. I call him Billy because I've known him since we were children. And of course, he passed away, but he spent many, many years and many iterations trying to get this master plan put together. And we had discussed before the last town administrator left that we were going to come up with a plan to implement it. And now I think we're at a place that we need to make that a priority. That's I don't want to say it's new, but I think it's new for us to talking about this now. But something that's still out there that I think we talked about a while now is frankly a land use plan. You know, we have a lot of open space. We made a lot of purchases, a lot of wise investments, but we have needs, housing needs and open space needs and recreational, both, you know, passive and maybe specific use needs of open space. And I think land use is going to be another major thing that's focused on. And the last thing I'll say is a cemetery, particularly the Cook Cemetery and the, you know, basically our burial ground needs that we've talked about, but really haven't made any measurable progress towards. Besides, we did have a sizable donation. We did have a couple of people volunteer, but we really, I think we need to formalize a plan. So that's kind of my start. I'm just going to move to the vice chair, if you don't mind, to come up with your thought.
Sure, so I don't know what process, but I also have been thinking a lot about the master plan because I think it really connects to some of the other town goals. And there was a lot of community input in that. So I think that it's really as the town a service to really dig back into that. And but it did come up with actually one thing that may be a sub goal, but it relates to communication, but just about having a like town government mission statement and core values. So that I see that as about communication, but it does tie into the master plan. And then I think, yeah, other.
So is that all one? Do you think that's a sub
Well,
mission
sort of
statement? And
it's so that one, I don't know that it needs to be like a main goal, but I would love to see it become a sub goal. And I think maybe just in terms of communication. And I think that, I guess my sort of overarching priority would be to continue communication, much as has been said by some of the department heads, and I think, you know, Jeremy as well. Just continue the efforts to communicate, and I think bring in the boards and committees more, especially I think both the appointed ones and the independently elected ones, so that we have just more of an ongoing dialogue that we can tie to goals. Those are the ones that I was thinking of for now. So.
All right, so for me, I first wanted to actually probably add on to one of the land use plans and see if we could expand that to also include underutilized or poorly utilized town buildings. I know we've talked about that before, but there's some resources that we have in town that are not being utilized to their full potential. They could either be useful to the people in town, or they could be a revenue source for the town.
can you identify, because I can identify a couple, why don't you identify?
Yeah,
So not the only ones, but some specific.
Okay, so a few things that spring to mind. We've got the town hall annex, we've got the Shell building. We also have the Boy Scout hut near Cormier Woods, I think.
Okay, so So just so we're talking about the town hall annex, which is the former location of the Taft Public Library, particularly upstairs.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's one, and then the shell building on Morrison Drive, which was originally begun as a bunch of volunteers in the community and some business owners, particularly Kevin Meehan, that had donated some money and time to build that shell building on town property and donated it to the town several years ago. And then
There's a
and you
whole,
talked about the Boy Scout hut
Yeah,
up in Cormier Woods, right?
Yep.
That was kind of
was
reconstructed,
rehab.
rehabbed by Troop 44 about 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's going the other way now, so it'd be nice to actually have that usable, but I don't know if it's something that people could rent it out or sign up or, just to to explore, a use for that.
We also have the building on Main Street here that was rehabilitated.
Yes, the
And-
records room.
Records,
Yeah.
yeah, and copper shop.
Yeah, the only,
Color shop.
For the development across from Cemetery Street.
Yeah,
It's like-
I mean, that was, just for point of reference, that was called the cobbler shop. It was actually a garage that was owned by Mr. Lundvall. But when the land was donated and it was, that's kind of what it was named as a nickname, or maybe it's a formal name.
So, I know it is that from the Historic
Right.
Society, I think, because at one point, that's how it got its Register of Historic Places designation, was that it was a former cobbler shop, and there's stuff in there that, but we own it, we pay insurance on it, and, I don't think it's as in good shape this year as it was last year, so.
Right.
Whether it gets fully utilized or just utilized in some capacity and preserved.
yeah, exactly.
And just a couple of others are I think we can increase the use up at Inman Hill for the two
Yeah, that's a
steel
good.
buildings, right? And we were already in the process of actually electrifying and looking at putting water up there again, because there was a surface well that was actually filled in. So there is no water supply, and one of them is not electrified and has no heat.
Yep.
And I think it would be a good idea to make an investment to do that. So those two up at Inman Hill, also the Paddock property, you have a house and a barn, right? That could possibly be affordable housing. As I'm thinking about this,
There's a lot of possibilities.
right, but those are all,
And also, I think it's worth mentioning the rectory, even though there are potential plans for it, but nothing has been decided on yet. And I think that, we need to
So there was a,
keep an eye on those plans and figure out which way to go with it.
so on the last day before my leave started, there was capital planning presentation from the fire chief and the highway superintendent that I was involved with too. I'll share it with you all, or I'll have them share with you, and then we had a takeaway on the Monday after that. But anyway, they've got a great plan for the Morrison Drive building, about emergency management, about continuity of operations, shelter, office space, parks, or grounds, workshop and garage, that sort of thing. And then have that be event space, and also be swing space, for a senior center. If you do expand in place and rehabilitation of the senior center where it is, it becomes swing space for the senior center, all in conjunction with the library rectory project that presented on at the multi-board meeting. So it's kind of three-pronged approach to solving.
That's exactly the.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
exactly the right way to do it.
So I've got both the fire chief and the highway superintendent kind of digging, going past that first level about what's the feasibility on this, who do we need to talk to on this, what haven't we thought about, and then once I'm back in a couple of weeks, we'll schedule something for you all to get your thoughts on this brush before we spend real time and money on it.
and the last thing that I can think of about this subject, I do have a meeting coming up with the superintendent of schools. And just as a follow-up to our meeting when we had the emergency management plan, I don't know how far they're into all of their rehab from the debt exclusion that we passed last year.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make a pitch to her to rehab some of the old showers up there,
So this is
because
for
if
shelter.
we're going
For
to
shelter.
have,
Yeah.
for shelter, because, the idea was we don't have enough capacity if we have some kind of an emergency. And if we have to house people for any length of time, I think we need to have an area, even if it's used for nothing else, but just to have a half a dozen showers in there. And we already have the water and the plumb. If they're gonna redo everything.
Yeah.
I wanna see what we need to do to make that happen. So we actually have that ability in an emergency situation, so that if we do have to house people, we've got the space and the cots and everything else, but we need, it's part of the sanitary issue.
Yeah, that's a lot more suitable than the senior center, I think, for a large.
That was part of the discussion about the Morrison Drive
Yeah.
project in its infancy, right? Is that we need that kind of stuff. We need, medium term showers, facilities, that sort of stuff.
We need to be prepared, because it really isn't if, it's just when. You know.
Anything else from you, Brendan?
Yeah, so the other thing is, I know we've been doing a lot of great work with the general bylaw review committee, so, cleaning up the general bylaws, I think is just continue to chip away at it and implement those suggestions. Let's see that happen.
I wanted to, I don't know if this was sent, it was, we received, Elena and I received an email today from the town clerk. And while we're talking about bylaws, you brought up the bylaws, she actually took a 2-day, actually 16-hour course on parliamentary law.
There's a lot of bylaws that she wants to
Yes.
implement from that.
She gave me a couple of them. She said she wants us to consider putting verbiage in our general bylaws that states we conduct our meetings under Robert's rules, because there's nothing codifying how we run our meetings. So we need to include it in a bylaw that these meetings are opened, run under Robert's rules. And also, apparently, it's called town meeting time, which is, we do follow town meeting time at town meetings, but it's not stated anywhere. And it's actually a requirement.
Okay.
So we should codify it
I would agree.
with that. So it's town meeting time for town meetings, and then Robert's rules for all of our other public meetings.
Are there any other particular bylaws that the board would want at least us to look into to start?
I don't know if this is even can be a bylaw, but I mentioned it, I think, last time. I think we've had a nagging issue with us being special municipal employees, because the town has less than 10,000 residents. And specifically, there's a bunch of really good ethics rules or laws that exist in the Commonwealth, and a lot of them are relaxed or excused for the size of our town when it comes to who can serve on boards and committees and ethical conflicts, because the town is smaller than 10,000 residents. And I understood that was just for practical reasons. But now we're somewhere around 6,500 residents. And some of the laws have changed where we can get people from out of town to serve on certain boards and do certain things. And I think we should explore it, because I think it would avoid a lot of conflicts of interest if we just.
Is that something that we're able to?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if we can, but I think it's something we should consider.
So it doesn't need to be a bylaw. Designation may be made by a formal vote of the select board.
To just basically say, no, we're not gonna.
So
You really, is it?
That's it.
Sure, it's that simple, because I thought at one point, it actually, rather than a bylaw, just like we had to do this with one of the other exception about who can serve on the select board, is we actually had to have a special session at the State House, and they had a special home rule petition or something.
So it's eligible, so your position's, I think I read this the last time, your position's eligible to be designated as special municipal employee, provided that you are not paid, or you hold a part-time position which allows you to work another normal job, or you are not paid for working more than 800 hours. So the 10,000 person, it only applies to you all. So in a community less than 10,000, you're automatically special municipal employees.
Right.
It's everybody else that this board would have to designate a special municipal employee. So it actually wouldn't be a bylaw. So for example, you could say a election worker can also be a van driver or something.
A recycle center person could also be a van driver. I have an entire email from our neighbor council
Yes.
about SMEs that he has sent me, and I'm now well versed in
Sounds good.
how they work.
So you're telling me that the ethical issue I'm bringing up from special municipal employees only applies to this board, because the way it was explained to me, for instance, if you have people who work on the Board of Health, there is supposed to be an ethical prohibition of somebody who actually installs septic systems as being able to inspect those septic systems and passing them. But in a town with less than 10,000, just because there aren't a whole lot of people with that expertise, it was those ethics rules are relaxed or waived.
So they might be, but that doesn't have anything to do with the special municipal designation.
Okay, well then I'm talking about the wrong thing.
Because their role as a installer isn't an employee of ours. They're certainly.
Right, but I think as an inspector, being a part-time inspector, they are.
So special municipal employee,
I'm not saying, I could be wrong when I'm using that designation, but what I'm saying is that there are, I think there was, the way it was explained to me in the past by council a long time ago, is there are certain roles or jobs within the town that Mass General Law prohibits certain people from taking certain roles, but because of the size of the town, some of those exemptions are lifted. And I just want to know if there's a way to, I mean, maybe there is no way to do it. I don't know.
Could this topic just be what, ethics bylaws in more general terms? Does that make sense?
yeah, we'll see.
Sure.
I think that relates to that question about the,
Having someone on both the zoning and the Concom.
Board of Appeals and Concom. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, a related ethics question.
That's what, right, brought it up.
But you will have a special municipal employee designation next week's meeting, because we have one employee that wants to take on another role in another department, so I've got all the information.
Yeah.
It's important to remember, special municipal employee, I think it's poorly
It's
named.
poorly worded.
So what it means is so no one can have two titles, or can have two positions. I can't be the town administrator and a police officer, right? Just like you can't be a recycling center attendant and a van driver. You have two different rates, you have two different, all these other things, unless you're designated as a special municipal employee. But in that same breath, the state says it's not employee specific, it's position specific. So it's actually a special municipal position.
Role.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is narrow enough that this board can take, and future boards can then take away designation on it. Where that gets housed, where that gets written down and lives, I guess we should talk with the town clerk. Maybe she keeps a binder of special municipal employees or something.
This is one of the cans of worms I have opened since you've
Uh-huh.
gone.
There's also a related question about the bylaw, about elected officials not being eligible to work for the town. I know that.
Until after 1 year.
Until after 1 year,
The
and whether,
reservation.
Yeah.
right, and whether we want to refine that. I know there was some progress with that, with the
Yeah,
bylaw
that's good.
review committee, but that would be one that
Yeah.
would be worth discussing some more.
I'm going to put procurement on here because it didn't quite make it. Just raise the threshold to what becomes the surplus item, so it's not $50 anymore
Yeah, that makes sense.
from 1964.
Yeah.
But yeah, those can obviously come up throughout the year, but I just want to get the board's thoughts here so we can put it.
You done?
Yeah.
I'd like to see the noise bylaw finished up. Fire chief bylaw, I'd like to see approached this year. For a lot of reasons. I said approached, where we go with it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see the town hall finished at I'd like to see the area, like the customer service area finished up. I don't know what else to call that, but that's really, I think, what it is.
Like public facing area.
Yeah,
We're talking about like.
the windows
Full
and stuff.
signage and
That's
Yeah.
already.
make it more approachable.
That's in play.
I'd like to see it finished up.
I'd like to see it finished.
I would.
Following on that, though, I think one of our goals, maybe this is part of communication, I think we've made some strides this way, but like somehow better integrating the public into our municipal government. I don't know what that really means. I mean, sometimes it's like us doing, this amazing event this Sunday, right? Or sometimes it's the newsletter there, but we don't have public outreach arm. Maybe that's part of your job, but like we don't necessarily have a public outreach arm. We don't have a consistent strategy across all of these things. It's like, well, we could get people in with free food this time, or we could get them interested on this. We don't have one single role of people we can communicate to and say, we'd like your community input on this thing we're talking about, and messaging that same sort of group of people over and over again. That I'd like to see that communication outreach arm a little bit more strategic.
I know Ellen has, I think, approached you or talked to you about her Citizens Academy that she wants to run. So when people.
There you go. Well, like open meeting laws is mentioned in the survey, right? I know Ellen sends that out multiple times a year. I know MMA does training, right? And so I know we've had our lawyers come in here and do. So like, what are we missing there? Is that because it's too confusing? And then when we go and do Robert's rules, it just makes it just ultimately confusing. Like, how do you train people up on communication and running committee and board meetings? I don't really have an answer to that.
We had a pending schedule to have town council come in and train all of the employees and all of the boards and committee members on open meeting law. And that was supposed to happen, and it was postponed twice, and then it never got rescheduled. So I think you've done some of it with the employees, right? But what I would like to see is I'd like to see council come in as part of that. I mean, I know that's not really the public.
No, but on some of our more official boards, I don't want to say that anybody's less official anymore, but things that are like bound in government law, the people who go to them, zoning, planning, public facing ones, like they need to be treated the same way when they enter and leave these meetings. And it's not, it's not always happening because not everybody is communicating the room in the same way, it's not always as orderly, and it's just, honestly, but the education turns into culture. And so we've changed culture in a lot of other places that we have really direct control over. And the stuff that we don't have direct control over, I think we need to concentrate a little bit more on it. It just, for example, like still having arguments at the board levels about policy to review candidates. Right? Like that's still happening. There's still a negative sentiment there, which means we're not communicating properly why these candidates need to be reviewed. So that's on us, right? So those are like, everything else here is great. Those are my goals, are just trying to get more government leaking out into the community. People don't feel a part of it. They feel like we're elitist and we're on some sort of platform, which for a lot of cases we are. And so it's sort of our duty to come back down from that platform and figure out how to get on the level and communicate with people. So we're doing all these little things. It's that sort of long running strategy. So like, how does this culture be maintained after this board and this TA leave? How does that keep going? And if this board can vote things away, you can't guarantee that. So some of that has to be inside our bylaws, but it also has to be inside the employees and staff and volunteers who are here, throughout the administration changes. So.
Can I actually add something real quick?
You absolutely can.
Now that the select board policies have been in place for about a year, I think they should probably be revisited. And like, what works, what doesn't work. What's a stupid idea?
We have a review.
Yeah, like a cycle of policy.
Yeah, there is a procedure in there for periodic review. Yes, there is.
Of course there is.
But like, doesn't mean we can't do it early.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's all I have.
So as the rookie, I'll say some things like, oh, you should know that we do that. But I really have three overarching, like 10,000-foot view comments as opposed to, right down at the detailed level. And we've talked about all of these, and we've already got some written. When I looked a couple months ago, I was talking to Sharon McFarland. She asked me, name three things that you think the select board should be on their mind, moving forward. So my first one was, of course, financial preparedness and discipline. But that's a high level goal.
Like policies?
Well, to me, and how I look at it is, and this is a place where you say, well, Brian, of course we do that. You just aren't familiar with it. Is how do we always feel comfortable that what we talked about, and at that moment, oh yeah, we're prepared to go check and say, yep, we're always getting a consistent feedback to say, what we were thinking is actually occurring the way we thought it was happening, so that not only do we have preparedness, but we use good discipline. Because, my concern, and might just be mine, what's going on with the federal government, they're continuing to pull back and pull back and pull back. An example, I would not be surprised in the next couple of years, there is not a Department of Education. There is no more federal money coming. And the approach is, let the states figure it out. So today we might feel like, all right, I think our plan is good. But are we really looking ahead to say, okay, what happens if this all went away? What are we prepared for that? And then discipline. But it ties to anything when you're talking about processes is, well, what is our master plan?
Yeah.
And where does that fit in the hierarchy that we have? So that was one thought I had, financial preparedness and discipline. Another was kind of the same thing, is infrastructure. I never am not impressed when I drive down Rhode Island over the last several years and what they have done with bridges and roads. It's incredibly impressive. Then you drive around Massachusetts and say, my God, that bridge, I'm afraid to drive under that bridge. So just making sure we have a sound process where we are assessing all the different major pieces of infrastructure that we have, so that we're proactive and not reactionary, right? It's like, oh crap, never thought that would have.
I think we have the assessments, but I don't actually think we've gone through and thought about, what bridge would be next, for example.
Right. So we're doing a culvert inventory project.
Right.
And that's exactly
With
what
Ty
I'm
and
talking
Rob
about.
right now. So, we got a town meeting appropriation 3 meetings ago, for our matching funds. And then we're providing in-kind services, through highway and and other
I
stuff.
thought we had inventoried through the pavement project. We didn't.
This is an assessment as well. So I made the inventory and we inventoried.
This is like actually seeing what's up. Okay.
So we had time bonds running that. So yeah, there's grant money that provides 3/4 of it, and then we provide the rest.
Right.
Hugely important.
And then the last topic I had, we've all talked about the importance of communication, not only internal between the committees and the boards, but I think you did a great job in hitting a point that was important, I thought important, is how do we do better outreach to the community and make them feel like we're not the elitists just doing whatever we want, especially in those situations where there's a pretty significant group that thinks we're making a mistake and we're not listening to them. What's a great way to get people to buy in is actually let them feel, not just through words, but through actions, you are listening and that you care. So everything we can do in that regard, I think, is really important. Somewhat tangential to that is, so I live in Wood Drive. I don't know if you guys have been to Wood Drive. We're not a through street. So our street hasn't been paved in 30 years.
Oh, you're on the list.
I have a couple of neighbors that, I don't know if you know their names, but I'm sure DPW knows their names because they are constantly haranguing. So they're always looking to me. They used to look to Mike Goddard because he's in my neighborhood. In fact, his wife has made jokes to me about it. But there's an example of, and because I've heard it from residents in my street, when big votes are coming up, why should I care? Town doesn't care about me. Look at my street. So that's an example of, even if you're like, well, I'm not going to pay this year or the next year, but I hear you, and here's the plan. So now they at least understand, okay, Well, there's a plan.
So, your predecessor from Wood Drive used to bang on the table and say, you better not pave Wood Drive first. You better pave it.
Listen, they tell, every time I
It's all
walk
Mike's fault.
in, they're asking me, I'm like, listen,
It's gonna happen.
I am not walking in to the select board and saying, I want my, in fact.
No, but it's a
I don't know.
perfect,
But
it's a
it's
perfect
showing-
example of communication, because we actually did talk about the order when that would be done, and we did communicate it, and it is written down. But even the residents of that street don't know about it.
That's an example.
Yeah.
It's like just here, oh, wow, they do care about me.
So we used data engineering, did a pavement management study, did cost benefit analysis of all that sort of stuff. We updated it once, and then in September maybe of last year, superintendent came and talked about the approach for the next kind of 2 or 3 fiscal years. Every time it comes up in a Facebook comment about it, I then share that video again, to say, you know, if you want to watch this 45-minute thing, that's not a great.
Should it be on the website?
And my thought, it's not just Wood Drive, there are other communities in the town that are equally in the same situation that.
Yeah, we know them all, that's the thing.
Yes, so those were the 3 big for me, ending with the communication aspect.
Right, if we had done a short 3-minute video instead of a 45-minute video, or we chopped that video up or whatever.
Well, you know, humans' attention span nowadays are about
Put the
30
list on the
seconds.
website.
But I think one of the reasons, a couple of things, a couple of years ago, we actually made the bylaws that we would record and broadcast all of our meetings. And everything's on YouTube to make it more accessible to people. And the improvements to our website that Jeremy's implemented makes it easier for people to go into the website and ask a question like that and put in some keywords and actually get information. And that's supposed to be continually refined. So the goal of it is when a citizen actually comes up with anything to do with town government of the town, they can actually go someplace online, write in a question and get an answer. And of course, now it's funny to talk about AI, but with it all on the web, now they can put it in there. And you know how Claude goes out and searches the web? Well, if they did that, they would actually come up with that plan, and they were going to tell you from the plan exactly when it's scheduled to be done.
And with that, it's interesting to hear you say this, Brett, because I'm like, yeah, we've done it. But if people don't know.
If they don't know it.
Yeah.
Right, it's perception, right? Perception is reality. So everyone can say, oh, no, they just have it wrong. Well, maybe that's our fault that they have it wrong, because they should know it.
Remember, perception isn't reality, it's your reality.
That's what I mean by that. Any human being, their perception, that is their reality.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Can I piggyback off a couple of these things? So yeah, I appreciate the idea that we need to like communicate or figure out how to communicate better with the public. I think we're trying, and I think, yeah, strategize about how we can reach people with more of a like, you know, dialogue. And I know, I wonder if there are ways that I think that I know it's not just the newsletter that Jeremy and Kat have put together. That's really helpful. But it's quarterly, and it's still a question of actually getting people to access it. And I know having a local news source is also really helpful, but I wonder if there are other ways that we can make little like tidbits. Yeah, something small or regular, like so that people know to look for it.
I'm not starting a TikTok channel.
What's that?
I'm glad you're not, so I don't have to veto it.
Like, I also wonder about you know, when we've had public hearings, sometimes they're well attended, but I wonder, like, if we had like an information session about, say, infrastructure or roads, because those are issues that people are very passionate about.
Yeah.
But if we did that, you know, if we plan to do that, not just when it's sort of an urgent thing we have to decide now. I don't know if people would come, but sometimes knowing that they could go actually makes them feel like they have the communication.
We don't like when we have a road discussion, we don't like specifically invite people, whereas when we had the culvert discussion like we invited people, we said, we are having this discussion.
Yeah.
And right, we could do a more regular plan or be more clear in our agenda to say that like, no, we're actually going to have an open discussion. And we do invite people to come communicate. Yeah, if we did that more regularly on regular topics, not emergency topics, then that might be a big boost.
Yeah, I mean, even to do it every other month, you get 6 special forums a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we did 3 last year. Well, if you count Vanderpump, we did at least 6. So,
Yes, I can see that, yeah.
And actually, while we're talking about this issue, this is the last point that I had. Many, many years ago, we talked about the idea of having we called it a community cabinet meeting. What we were going to do is we were going to have a session at least once a year where it was specifically all of the members of all the boards and committees. We would have a scheduled meeting.
that's the top of my to-do list for this year. I'm actually going to take that on this year and try to get that going. So.
And when you say all committees, do you mean all town stuff or like civic groups?
Town stuff. What I mean is that
Boards and committees.
because everybody does it, we have our representatives to those different boards and things, but the idea was that we would have, and again, the term that Kim actually came up with was community cabinet, where we would have a meeting with an agenda where a member or the chair or a designee from every board and committee within the town would come to a meeting upstairs. And basically we would have an agenda and they would report to everybody else. So that there was idea of the entire, it was actually kind of like, almost like Congress getting together, right? And talking to.
So like a state of the town?
Correct. Well, just I guess that's a good way to determine, to explain it so that, everybody can hear at one point what's going on. Almost like this, but for.
I want to do it in December right before the holiday party and then get everybody to come to the holiday party. Kind of continue the discussion. Yeah, that's my thought last year.
Every time we've had multi-board meetings, they've been very productive. So when they came up for, the joint meeting with us and library trustees and council on aging.
Yeah.
Like, that was really useful.
Everybody was prepared.
Right. And when the school committee invited, us and, and select boards, both FinComs, I mean, those were really productive. And I think maybe if we can encourage that culture of having just more communication between the boards.
Yes,
Which I know we've talked about that, but I think just in particular, those meetings where people actually get in the same room and talk about shared goals or potentially just, even understanding what the goals are of that.
Yep.
so that's my last, so I'm gonna ask before we keep adding on to this, so let's just go around one more time. So I covered everything I had on my list. How about, do you have anything else?
So I do, so I do want to make sure that we keep housing and affordable housing on our radar. I know one of the department heads mentioned it, but we put a lot of time into the housing production plan a couple of years ago.
Right.
We have not regularly revisited that, and I know that will come up again, that we will need to have another housing production plan, but there were some goals laid out, and that I think it would be worth revisiting those regularly.
Thank you. Anything else new that we haven't mentioned?
So Mike isn't on the board anymore, so I will say quarterly financial reviews, if we can have those.
We started to, and then.
We did start doing it.
Right.
And that ties exactly to what I was thinking.
I mean, you can read the warrant every week.
Can.
You can.
Be nice to have it more summarized.
Is that the only new thing?
Yeah, that's what I had for new. Let me look at my list to see if there's anything else.
Jason, anything else you want to add?
I mean, it does sound like we need plan, do you want to talk? Yeah, I want to talk.
I have one more.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I remember we spent a lot of time getting the recreation sport field committee up, that didn't go anywhere, right?
It's a good point.
But that again is.
Back to
within
town
open
use.
Space.
Yeah, it's all related.
Right.
It's all related.
But that's a great, because I thought of that too, at one point, we were gonna do the ultimate Frisbee, and there were issues with it that we were gonna refine, and, we haven't, so.
Every time I look at our, balance sheet in one way or the other where it says recreational field committee, town meeting article, and there's money there that we appropriated for technical assistance to it. It's like, all right, the money's just sitting there. We gotta do
So
something.
do something with it, right?
Can that be used for?
That's it. That's all.
programming?
No, it's for technical assistance for this field committee to bring in a consultant to say what's feasible here, but it's to pay for services that we have yet to define because we don't have the committee together that says what are the services we wanna.
And that was advertised, there just wasn't a lot of takers, right?
Yeah, there are two, I think.
No.
We shouldn't even get to a quorum of I think, chartered it at 7.
Actually, that does remind me of another sort of ongoing goal, which is getting, it relates to the public outreach, but we do want more people to get involved with the boards and committees. Like, how do we engage people? Because we have a lot of people on boards and committees put in a lot of energy and sometimes on multiple boards and committees, and we.
So as part of my public outreach, I guess it's gonna be some part of my job description. What if they held office hours, if the select board held office hours and other boards and committees held office hours? We're gonna have an open office. I don't quite know where it's gonna be, but there will be an open office here, and we're talking about using it as sort of a hotel office.
I like that
I'd be
idea.
happy.
Yeah.
Kind of like when our state rep and
Yeah,
state senator has like a coffee hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah. I mean, something we've started it's at the senior center, but we started this coffee with a cop.
Yeah.
And
Really well attended.
yeah, it was really well attended. We're gonna do another one really soon, but I suggested we do coffee with A and then put in like the highway department, and then John Dudley could go over and talk about plowing and other things along the streets, TA,
You tell John Dudley, yes.
No, I already told him, but he suggested it. He suggested it. Tracy did something on taxes. She only had 3 people there, but
Yeah.
it was a quick turnaround because taxes were due. We just wanted to make sure people knew. And I think Ellen's doing one on elections, and that's at the senior center, but maybe we could start doing more of those for the entire community.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Great.
We talked a little bit about it. Something else that the town clerk is doing is kind of a new resident flyer. So just a little one-pager
You
about.
moved to Mendon, what do
Yeah,
you do?
welcome to Mendon. Here you go. Here's where you go to find out about trash pickup. Here's where the town meeting is. Here's how you register to vote. Here's the animal control officer number, all that kind of stuff.
And while you're at it, maybe your neighbors haven't learned any of this. Even though they've been here for
Tell
10
them.
years.
That's right.
So it came from Northbridge. I happened to walk in one day and say, I got this in the mail. Can you tell me what this is all about? It was one of my children had re-registered to vote and used my address. So I had this welcome to Northbridge, and she took it and actually made it much
Yeah,
better.
she's gonna say, let's do this, but better.
Yeah, she made it much better. So it'd been something she'd been thinking about doing, but it was really, I think it's really informative.
Sorry, who?
Ellen.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Of course she did.
Is it
Yeah,
gonna be?
exactly.
That's what she does with everything she tackles.
Yeah,
Is it gonna trigger off of a registration to vote?
yeah, that was my assumption.
It could potentially, I mean,
We could put it with the census, maybe.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, the real estate agents often have like a package.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Give it to the real estate agents too, because I know we got some new neighbors on Washington Street, and they were replacing their roof, and I think they got hung up because they're in a historic district. and they
Yeah.
haven't known about it.
Presumably, this would be public information, so
Exactly.
we could put it lots of.
I mean, I think she's gonna put it on her website, like
Yeah,
her link.
I love it.
I think it's really informative.
Yeah, that's great, that's a great idea.
All right, I have 2 small things. One is, it seems like we need to bring the planner in for a brainstorm around all this town, the master plan, the free space, but not for a direct discussion about one of those things, but like a brainstorm
Like a
about how to bring a strategy to all that.
They will be at the next select board meeting, but
Well, they might not know that we want that.
there's many other issues that are on the agenda already.
So can we maybe for the first meeting in September,
Yeah,
have an agenda item to discuss
strategies.
relevant relevant issues from this meeting with the planner and actually give it to them and let her look at it, and then have her allow her to prioritize and, give us some action items.
Yeah.
All right, how do we implement this? You know?
Yes. And my second thing is pleasant town meeting. This is still on community engagement, communication. Definitely Jeremy has brought it up a notch in the booklet and the financial analysis and the PowerPoints, but just like it needs to be inviting for the public. And again, we shouldn't have to have some crazy thing going on in order for people to feel like, I really want to go to town meeting and vote. So making that more of an experience, I don't have an answer to how to do that, but like, yeah, hamburgers out front, whatever it is. Food truck, sure.
I have the entire list.
Anything that makes it so that it's easier for people to attend town meeting. And easier means that when they're there, they at least don't hate being there. They don't have to really enjoy it, although that would be nice, but like not, it's not pleasant. I don't get the impression from most people that they really enjoy it. I like it, but we're all involved in town government.
I really think, I'm not trying to disagree with you, but I think the people, they want to enjoy it, but the truth is that they've got so much going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're trying to take the time out
Right.
to go through this process. And I think along those lines, anything we could do to make it maybe not easier.
Valuable or easier, yeah.
Easier. And I think one of them big things would be childcare.
Yeah,
That is always something.
sure, 100%.
But, and I know we're kind of delving off of the goal.
Yeah, we're solutioning, but
I mean, I know that sometimes the Girl Scouts volunteer or whatever like that, but could we leverage some of the counselors that work here in the summertime that might?
it's not like,
Provide
we
childcare.
can do a lot of things,
Right.
but like most things, it needs a long-term owner and a strategy and a reason for being, right? And it can happen a little bit through culture, but like every meeting, needs to be a good meeting. It can't just be, well, this time a bunch of us spent effort on it and this time we did it because we were busy.
I'll tell you what the solution would be to, if it's legal, is to appropriate a certain amount of money and just hire some babysitters in a particular area of the school.
Yeah.
And allow everybody to bring their minor children to that area.
You would have to Cory check every single one. You can't just.
Correct. Oh, well, that's.
Sorry,
No, I'm just.
Sounds like a good meeting invite, a good meeting agenda item for
And
someday.
to our topic of communication, get feedback from the community.
Right.
What would
100%.
make you excited about coming to the
Right.
meeting? What pisses you off about and makes you not want to come to a meeting?
Right.
And see what they have to say. And if you get a lot of people say, childcare, if I had childcare, then, okay, we gotta do that. If you had this, okay, we gotta do that.
Shout out about the clickers though, those have been like game changing.
Yes, and humor is great.
Yeah, no, I think town meetings are okay. I would just we've got 6,500 people and we get 200 people showing up.
Yeah, I mean,
Halftime show would be cool.
you know what, there's a lot of people that don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, right. They have no idea. They've never even been to a town meeting. They just,
Could it be, not, I mean, you wouldn't be able to vote remotely, but show it on the cable station?
that's been brought up. Yeah,
If we can do it live or not. I know we had one issue once when somebody was in the room and their dad, who was a former selectman, started texting and that person wanted to get up and, but I think that's a good idea. And we do record it, and play it later on, although I think isn't there a bylaw or a state law about something about recording or something that we can't?
I thought they were recorded. I thought they were actually like the.
I think it's just remote participation that they can't do.
Can't do.
And it's not subject to typical open meeting law either.
Right. That's probably what I think of. Okay, so do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
I have nothing else.
Nothing else.
I'm
Okay.
curious what Kat
Yeah,
was.
Yeah, I know, I was gonna-
Had
that's
an
my next.
expression that looked like she had something she was gonna say.
I was just gonna say, as someone who went to their very first 2 town meetings ever in their life, between the 2 different towns, I enjoyed ours much better than I did up here. I'm not gonna, I won't lie, but,
You're just saying.
no, I'm serious.
Upton had a lot of problems.
Upton had a lot of problems. They had a lot of people, obviously they're a lot bigger than Minden and everything. But even, I think our boards and committees, I find that it was a better experience going to the Minden one. And even though I wasn't participating other than just kind of observing and learning the clicker system, just the community was better. Like, I don't know, I felt like it was a lot better. So I agree that having childcare would be very helpful. My kids are older, so I didn't have to worry about that, when I dragged my mother-in-law and my husband out, it was their very first time, as well. And just not even knowing like how important and working here has opened up a whole can of worms, not worms, but a whole world for me. A whole world where I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just don't want to.
Can we
because
make
I didn't-
a PSA with you talking about?
Well, we did TikTok of town hall.
It goes right along though with the idea that everybody gets a voice.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I don't think they realize that, the way we run things, everybody gets, you might not make a convincing argument, but the point is everybody gets a voice there.
You can go so far as to amend a bylaw on town
Right.
floor,
Right?
you can do
Think,
that
you know,
if you want
see
to
what
get
you're
the
saying.
support.
Did you get a sense, because you knew the personality of Mendon, when I say personality of the board, the major players at town meeting conveyed a certain personality, right? Would you say it was similar or significantly different in Upton? Meaning it was a more welcoming personality than what you got in Upton?
Absolutely. It was,
Because I think it's Maya Angelou that said, people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel.
yes.
The only,
And it's the feeling part.
the only thing I will say about that is just having been around for a long time and, knowing a lot of the people from Upton it goes back and forth. A
Really.
lot of it's situational.
Okay.
And, there was a lot of transition there, right? There's a lot of new moving parts,
A lot of big projects.
a lot of big projects, a lot of big, and I think you'd find that, I'm glad you feel that way about us, but I think you find that, Upton has a pretty, great population too.
Oh,
Great government, and again, I think a lot of it's situational, like what they're dealing with at the time. Because I can give you,
Yeah, the town manager's in there too.
right, but I can just tell you about, times here
Sure.
when we had some particularly crises, and it was not a wonderful environment or experience to go to.
It's true. I definitely think who's on the board helps too. And yes, I did know you guys, but putting myself out from knowing you, just watching how their board acted, watching how yours, their FinCom, all of that, it's a lot better here than it was there.
I will say this, that I feel.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, I feel very lucky. Because like I said, I've been around for a long time, and we have not always enjoyed the environment. And, we really have a really terrific ensemble of people, who all want to be here and there's a certain cordialness that we have that has not always been there. And it's kind of like sometimes, to be blunt, there are some people that they just brighten up a room by walking out of it. And a bunch of them have walked out of the room and not come back, But anyways, okay, so everybody.
Sharon's gonna quote you on that one.
But I didn't. Right, and the funny thing about that comment is there will be a bunch of people who will, listen to that, And they'll know exactly who I'm talking
Here's
about.
the thing, we think this song's about you.
So everybody, I think, has, go ahead.
I had one more thought, because you're talking about reaching out and making sure they felt heard, and something that kind of comes to mind, maybe that goes into the newsletter if it eventually goes monthly or other things, is, and I say Dear Abby, I think everybody knows that, that's why it's something like that where people can reach out to a specific person and
That's a great idea.
Ask a
they
question,
can,
get an
yes,
answer.
ask a question, get an answer, or be able to bring that to the, to the board or something like that, whether I end up becoming, the dear cat of, and whatever, but I just think that would be kind of cool. So they have voice and they can do it anonymous, if they wanted to, but they have a place that they can reach out. So.
That's awesome.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think on the newsletter, we're getting some buy-in.
Is Sharon here, is there a?
She did a.
She did a laughing face.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we could put a newsletter out this month because we have so much stuff on it. I'm not saying we're going to.
Can you like report on the questions that you get from text.my.gov and like stuff like that?
Yeah, so so we started out with a list of a few hundred, gonna be off time, administrator update, with a few hundred phone numbers. And after I sent out, I don't know, maybe 24 alerts, we were down to like 85 because people just kept unsubscribing.
Okay,
And so.
so people do not want text
So
messages.
for the few $1,000s a year we're paying for this and the like constant negative feedback I was getting, we discontinued the service.
All right,
Well,
there's my answer. I guess we need a human.
So, yeah, so it was kind of like, we tried the solution. I tried to give it a value for like a year and a half, and it worked. I used it for staff stuff when we closed town hall and,
Yeah.
snow, and it was a good way to get alerts out that way. We have other ways of doing that, but,
Okay,
it wasn't worth the cost for us, for the solution.
well, at least we tried it and we got an answer. All right, we don't have anything else to add to this. I'll defer to you, Jeremy, where you want to go from
Yeah,
here.
so I, kind of like we did last year, I'll just kind of flip back to show folks. We did a similar thing, red checks were from a few weeks ago, but we kind of put it into major areas, letters A, B, C, D. Stuff like debt exclusion management, inside the debt levy, senior center question, and a 5-year plan are all like one overarching theme. Tech inventory, IT procurement, and tech optimization, all kind of one thing. So I was trying to look at this as we were going on. So things like master plan, implementation, cemetery plan, land use plan, town building utilization, and housing production plan. Those are all, to me, kind of either something we've already sat down and created and need to come up with an actionable solution for, or something we need to, the former, the flip page of that. The finance stuff is all kind of ongoing a little bit, so it can be kind of grouped into one. I guess maybe formalized CIP could have been over here as well. I added some stuff on here while we were talking to, just wanted to bring up debt exclusion management and council on aging, emergency management, library, like that solution together, because that requires long-term planning. I talked about debt rolling off and debt service rolling off in fiscals 2030 and 2031. That's when I would like the tax impact to hit. In order to get there, we kind of need to work backwards in terms of when do we get the debt exclusion, when do we do the design for it, when do we do the needs assessment before that, and we're looking at
that next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
So that needs to be an overarching thing. So we're trying to formalize CIP, so I wrote that up here in ongoing GBRC work. That was one of my notes in here. We have the capital planning committee as it's defined in the bylaws, but it doesn't create an obligation for them in the same way that the finance committee must express their opinion before any blah blah. So I'd like to get a requirement that they create a 5-year capital improvement plan, which I understand means that I do a lot of that. And then what else? And then I took some other notes. So I think the communication pieces are all important and overlapping a little bit, but they're really disparate approaches. So I guess knowing what your fellow board members think here, if we want to reduce, so think of finance kind of as one. We think of this as one, because that's all kind of easily doable. What are the kind of 3 to 4 other themes which we see here? The plans and implementations. What, like, multi-board, approach to things. How do we? So I guess if I just.
I think the multi-board strategy is a good like root cause or root issue to focus on if we want to improve communication.
It's a good vehicle to improve.
Yeah, it leads into the community space as well, and I think it's achievable. I don't know what to call that though. It's like extended collaboration.
So public integration, committee membership, participation, recruitment, the focused meetings and updates, kind of that as a ongoing board committee dialogue. And again, not all of these have to make it into the, kind of synthesis together. So I guess I see this as the the board committee communication, ongoing dialogue, and then the public integration into town government.
Those are the 2 main classes.
Yeah. So between.
So internal and external communication.
Yeah.
Basically.
So we'll put that into one. So this is all external, and then that, involves people getting involved in the committees. And then.
Carrying out plans and studies.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of the master plan, yeah,
Okay.
that kind of stuff. So I guess I should be consistent.
Well, is that like sharing our output? Is that what we're talking about?
That's how I interpreted it, like being able to say, here, we took our multi-month pavement management study, got into a 45-minute presentation, and now we need to get it into a 5-minute digestible.
But it's more than minutes. It's more than minutes and it's less than video. So.
Yeah, it's like a two-pager, right?
Yeah, and someone has to own keeping that updated too, because there's nothing worse than going there and seeing like plan from 3 years ago that hasn't been updated.
Well, like I think shouldn't we be identifying that like during the meeting when we're doing something important? Shouldn't we be like, wait, we just did something important. We should put this out on the website on the important section or whatever.
Yeah, like have a moment to think like, okay, now
Yeah, my
that we
vocab's
have
not good
this,
tonight,
what are
so.
the best ways for us to communicate this?
Yeah.
'Cause it might not be the same.
No, I
But,
think
like,
it's.
who are I don't know, the concerned parties or that should know about this and like, I don't know, just like.
That could just be filling out the select board website, honestly. Started doing a little bit of that this year, but.
Yeah, and mine's kind of a little haphazard. It's like, here's some stuff that's interesting and I put it on there, but like structuring it into pages or a better file structure.
Yeah.
There's one that's called various project memos. Like it's not navigable. All right. I think town meeting improvements can be like kind of a category unto itself. Like that doesn't really integrate with anything else, right? That's, these are, it was the deepest specific discussion we had, which I think means there's a lot of subpoints to that we need to, and, everybody, phrase that. I've heard from different corners of participation in town meeting about their opinions on how it can go better in the future. So we can,
Some of it might just be like us being earlier on a lot of it, like we picked a date, earlier this year. Like some of it might just be us not rushing. So.
Yeah, and I think we're plenty early, special town meeting as well. I think it should be an agenda item next week, right, to open and then set a warrant close date. All right, so town meeting, I think we can.
These are all community engagement. I think that really is part of that too, right?
Yeah, for sure, because it can't just be this board saying, here's what would make town meeting better for you. It's,
right.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we've got kind of A, B, C, D here.
I mean, capital's really thin, but it's very heavy, so. Actually, yeah, like,
I guess infrastructure assessment, I guess, actually. Like town building. You know, these three kind of go together.
Yeah.
You know, taking infrastructure is broader than just town buildings, it's not just vertical stuff.
Right.
But.
I mean, does that include water? Like, are we still?
Yeah, so
Is water a goal of our, I mean, like.
Well, that's part of infrastructure.
Yeah, but like, you know, we can move that, we can spend money on that, we can move that along further through further phases
Yeah.
through our, you know, if we
Right
want.
now, the whole effort with water is actually to preserve it and protect it, really.
But that's really been done already.
Well, it's not finished. We still have some land that needs to be acquired by the town. That's part of the aquifer, that is privately owned, and we're actively pursuing it. We also have, I had a conversation the other day with the treasurer, and she's speaking with the assessor, because we have multiple properties, one of them we brought up, that are, it's not clear who the owner is, and they haven't paid tax in quite some time, and we don't know who to ask. You know, that's part of town usage, and it also overlaps into capital and.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, we have a very aggressive treasurer who is very focused like a laser on getting those unpaid taxes collected,
Okay.
which is, again, another fantastic development. Not that it wasn't always, but the point is, there are resources now and you know, that are available that maybe weren't always before, and I think it's great.
All right, so more of a plant and infrastructure assessment, some of which is ongoing. So adding to those efforts, it's not both of those, neither of those, I should say, are starting from, you know, just to say, let's do a townwide infrastructure assessment is a major undertaking, but we've already done some of that.
Right.
In town building use, we've already done some of that, some of those have come forward. So just keeping that at the forefront, I think is important. All right, I can make this into something a little bit more digestible.
That's good.
And then just by virtue of anyone who's kind of been in my office with any regularity, this kind of this does sit in the corner of my office. So I reference it a lot, especially when someone comes in and says, you should be doing blah, blah, blah. Look, it's on there, don't worry. Or the opposite, you should be doing blah, blah, blah. It's like, not on there, so. So it stays there. So even the stuff that doesn't get elevated to what I reduce to writing, will stay on here and stay on everyone's radar.
Do you guys post that anywhere for the public so they know what the select board is working on?
That is one of our goals, remember?
Oh, yeah. You're right, I'm sorry.
So is this the same pad, the one that we started?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got,
Other page.
I think it goes back to David.
Is this still in the town archive?
Yeah, that's right.
In the vault.
Oh, look, we have SMART goals. We started off SMART.
Well, that was a slide, we might jump ahead of it. So yeah, this is not my handwriting.
Yeah, that's,
So
Yeah.
finance policy
David
procedures
Dimash.
ongoing, ongoing. Select board policies and procedures, capital plan, established department head meetings, quarterly financial reports, finance policy, town admin role, ROL, and job description, did that, roles and responsibilities, did that. 5-year road maintenance plan, bylaw review committee,
that was 3 years ago.
CMRPC for zoning bylaws, review, submit draft select board policies and procedures, senior center expansion ongoing, library rector resolution, ongoing, trash property.
We talked about that one, but I mean,
We
today,
did.
tonight.
Yeah, we said.
I thought we weren't saying that word anymore.
And then Cook Cemetery ongoing for tonight. So like, this is, it's pretty good,
We're still in line.
Not under touch.
This was the fiscal 25 goals that we did in January. So this was like kind of a little aggressive, I think, for what we could do in, 4.5 months. But a lot of it, was a carryover from the previous year.
I think one of the points you made, Jeremy, early on as an intro was we would touch base to make sure any of the goals that were made last year or previously, like you were doing, have not been forgotten about and are going forward.
And so I tried to do that, my latest memo about it. So to answer the first question, last year it did this, reduced its rating and sent it out to all Mendon email users. That was like, hey, this is, so that doesn't get it out community-wide, but it gets it out to our internal stakeholders, including all board and committee members. But yeah, we can definitely do better.
So it'd be like good to put like in the newsletter, stuff like that.
Yeah, the high level version.
Yeah, of course.
Are we auditing town meeting obligations? Like, do we follow up on things like that we voted on and dedicated money to? You were just talking about earlier, like we dedicated this money and then we didn't do anything.
Pollinator gardens. I know what's gonna happen eventually.
Not wholly, because similar to procurement and budget authority, they are owned by so many different people.
Okay.
I regularly look at it ahead of town meetings to say, so when we vote at town meeting, we take an amount of money so we've got our general fund, our budget with everything here, we've got all our special revenue funds, and then we have free cash, which is undesignated fund balance, and then we take that money and put it into or unrestricted fund balance, and we put that into a restricted fund, a town meeting article fund. And we can only use that for whatever the vote said we'd use it for. If we try to, the HVAC here, if we try to put HVAC over there, and accounting's paying attention, when we go to submit the invoice, they wouldn't let us pay that, they shouldn't. So it goes from unrestricted to restricted.
Yeah.
Those funds carry over from year to year and are no longer counted in free cash, but we no longer have fiscal year obligations. You can spend them in whatever year, they last forever. So I go and look in advance of each town meeting to say, what project's done, So there'll be something from Council on Aging that's coming up to say, hey, we want to redo the windows in this building. And if we don't have a new building for 5 years, we still want new windows. If we do have a new building here, and we lose 5 of those windows, it's still worth the project, yeah. They have like $6,000, but the vote was for basement windows.
The first floor. The first
For
floor,
first floor,
they want basement.
Yeah. So I look to take those funds, be like, okay, there's $6,000 there, let's close that out and reuse it or reauthorize it or do something like that. So in terms of auditing it, I go through and say, is this project still ongoing? So there's at least a twice a year where I touch base, and a lot of times the answer is like, not yet, we put it off, it's not a priority, or, we need to learn more about it or something like that. But yeah, it's not a deep dive, but it's on everyone's radar, on my radar.
Okay.
And, we closed out one recently from 2017 that had like $87.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing all the cleanup of the small amounts, but.
The $40,000 for town hall windows.
Yeah, or the pole barn. Or, yeah, any of the other like medium-ish projects that are being sort of held till we do other medium-ish projects, I think we sort of forget about them.
The cost of them all continue to.
Right. And like something that was 40 grand a couple of years ago is 80 grand this year.
I didn't ask the chief before, but I'm sure you'd say, I remember before COVID, cruisers were like 40 grand. It's like 30 something, and then you outfit it for like 40 something, and now they're double that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was thinking that if we would be holding ourselves more accountable if we were publishing that type of information in a way that was kind of easier to understand. I don't, because we can be a little obfuscating with our language.
It's also stepping aside, like for the public, you guys have come to us as the public, we voted on this money. What's the progress with it? What's happening with that? And I think not seeing the movement on that or getting updates can get very frustrating as taxes go up and you're not seeing what their money is being used.
Yeah. Makes sense. We should have all the answers when anyone says, what did you do with my tax dollars?
We have answers.
We do, we don't always have them at the tip of our
Updates.
tongue.
Absolutely.
But they're all well documented and well.
I think even just holding the boards and the committees accountable for those things would go a long way and providing those updates from them. That's a, way to get the community more involved, because they are being heard. You've asked for this money and they see it. They see what Mendon's becoming and the potential it has, and they buy into it. When you don't see it, it's like, yeah, what is my money going to? And then they get angry, and then they want businesses and they want other things to offset. And I just think it's helpful to show that.
And I've said to each of you, I have had conversations with different types of citizens that are involved, citizens that are somewhat involved, and they'll ask these types of questions, and I tell them what I'm seeing and what I'm learning, and universally they're like, wow, I'm really glad to hear that. Wow, we're doing better than I thought we were doing.
You know what you should say in every conversation? Come to a meeting.
Yeah, true. Well, I'm saying, some of these people,
Outreach.
no, some of these people,
Great job.
some of these
Right, go on
people
the website,
do
yep.
come to the
Oh,
meetings.
okay.
They're not completely detached citizens.
But the message I get is a lot of times people come looking for answers, and actually, unlike in the past, they actually get them. So, all right, I think we've pretty much thoroughly covered this. We accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So unless anybody has anything else. I guess we have, let's see, next meetings. So item 5, our next meeting is August 5th.
Next week.
Next week, and then August 19th.
I will not be here.
And then I would just encourage everybody to come. And the festivities start at noon time. I'm sorry, 2 o'clock?
12:30 if you're gonna do the trolley ride,
That's right.
Yeah.
2 o'clock if you're going to Amadon.
Are the trolley rides sold out though?
I don't know that.
I saw
They're
that,
sold
yeah.
out.
They
Yeah.
are all signed up for it, but if anybody's running, if you send Mrs. Lamoth a message, I believe some of us may have already been signed up because
Okay.
we had asked at one point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was lamenting the fact that I was not there. My wife informed me, oh, yes, you are.
She's like, I'm going, you're going.
And she said, yeah, because you said you wanted to be. And I said, well, how does that work? That usually when I say something, that doesn't mean anything. So.
Can I just say one quick thing
Of
before we
course.
adjourn? So one of our lieutenants in the fire department is riding the PAMAS Challenge this weekend, and there will be the fire truck set up with the
The giant flag.
giant
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah, I love it.
I talked with the other one of the other firefighters who's working on Saturday. They're setting it up around the 7 a.m. and they should be coming through around 7:30.
Where's the route in town go?
That I don't know.
It goes Providence to Bellingham.
I was gonna say, it
It's
comes
a
down
140.
Bellingham, it goes across Bate Street.
Yeah.
At Bellingham, I know that.
Yeah, and then it goes down to 140 and then then they go right and go all the way down to, I don't know where it goes after, it goes through Franklin, but yeah,
So the fire department is setting up with the big flag right across from the senior center.
yeah, it's pretty awesome when they do that.
And who is it?
Chris Nudd?
Oh, Chris Nudd.
Yeah, so this will be his 3rd year riding. I interviewed him the other day for the newsletter, and I'm becoming quite the reporter, so maybe Sharon should watch out.
Guest writer.
So, he, 3rd year riding. And then he also informed me that one of our police officers, Kellen, I can't pronounce his last name, Farragar. Farragar, he has volunteered for years, and I have a picture of both of them at last year's ride, down on the Cape when he stopped at one of the water stations, so.
Awesome.
Yep, so if
And he
anyone
is-
wants to go there.
And he is, Farragar is a Westboro guy, and he is Troop 100 Westboro Eagle Scout.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's a heck of a ride. It's 100+ miles.
Yeah, I think, well, it's starting at Holy Cross this year, and then going to Provincetown.
Providence.
So,
Yeah.
Holy Cross to Bourne, and then Bourne to Provincetown the next day. So, so if anyone wants to be out there, I did promise them I'd be there, so I'll be there.
So what,
7:15
time?
a.m. on
15?
I'll be there about 7:15, yeah.
Where again?
Right, so they're setting up right across from the senior center.
Okay.
So I asked firefighter Turcott today when he was here, what time are they bringing the truck out? And he said probably right when they get on duty at 7.
Right.
That's going on.
And I guess, and the last thing I'm gonna say is, the Centennial Camporee for the Mendon Centennial Camporee is The registration is up with the council, and it's going to be Columbus Day weekend, so everybody be made aware. So, all right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night.
As I said before, I feel awful that I'm not gonna be here Sunday, but
Yeah.
I've got out of town plans that have been there for months.
Yeah, it's a